we'll talk about it. Being a strong woman is hard in a lot of ways. The sport has grown massively, but there is a lot of insecure people out there that seem to like to make comments about you guys. And is that something that's affected you pushing the social media side of things more? Hey guys, welcome to Talking Strongman. As promised, I have the incredible Victoria Long, in my opinion, the best strongwoman on the planet. Last weekend, however, did not go how you wanted to, and you've announced that it's your last competition, which I know so many strength fans are disappointed about. So I wanted to get you on, talk about your time in the sport, because it's only been a short time compared to some other athletes. And maybe talk about what you're going to do in the future. But firstly, how is the hamstring? Because obviously you tore that last weekend at the Arnold's.
I did. I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. It's really, sore and tender and, nice and black and blue. But yeah, it's a full tear of two of the muscles. So I will have surgery for that here in a little less than a couple weeks. So to repair that.
Okay, obviously not the way you wanted to go out. I mean, how had your training been going up to the Arnold's? Because I know you had a hamstring issue. Was it last year when you attempted the world record on the deadlift?
Yeah, so I had a partial tear, grade 2 tear in the opposite leg, which we were able to heal, obviously without any like medical intervention, surgery, anything like that. And I mean, things were going really, really well. We came back slow from that, and I mean, I had no complaints as far as how, training had gone leading up to Arnold. So everything was on track.
Yeah, you're looking good. I mean, obviously you've competed the Arnold's a couple of times, two-time champion at the Arnold's.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Multiple winner of America's Strongest Woman. I mean, almost every single pro show that you did, you won. Your time in the sport has been quite remarkable. What got you into strongwoman to start with? I think you did bodybuilding before this?
Yeah, that's correct. I did bodybuilding for a few years before this. And the sport just, it got toxic for me. I think it does for a lot of people, just because your success is based off of people's opinion of you, how you look, and, that can just get really toxic. So one of my good friends, he was a strongman, had gotten his pro card, I think, in 16 or 17. And he was after me to just try it. And after probably a good year of him just like nagging me, I tried it. And I just did some local little contest at like the fairs that we have here. So sometimes they'll have like just little local strongman contests. And so that was the first one that I did in 2019. And that's where it started. And I enjoyed it. And yeah, here we are 5 years later.
So had he seen you in the gym and thinking this girl's got a lot of potential? Because I see some bodybuilders in my gym. I think if they tried strongman events, they'd be awesome. And it does. I think having that foundation of just working all your muscles, having that strength and that training behind you, it's very beneficial. Because some people just come straight into strongwoman and strongman, and they haven't got that fundamental strength. And I think you would have built that up, because it's not like you've just come into strongman straight away. You've been training for a while before that.
Yeah, for sure. Not to cut you off, but yeah, absolutely. I think that when you have that foundation, whether it be bodybuilding, powerlifting, any type of like strength sport, even if it's not a sport and you're just, in the gym and lifting, and yeah, definitely it puts you in a better spot once you decide to take on the sport. And so that's, in my case, that's what happens. So.
Did you enjoy the different style of training? Obviously, bodybuilding is very much appearance-based. How you look is what counts, whereas strongman, it's how you perform on the day. Did you like that variety, or the difference, I guess, in terms of prepping for very different type of competitions?
At first, it was really difficult for me to get used to, because the bodybuilding mindset is, reps and sets, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case with strongman. I mean, sometimes you'll have volume workouts, but for the most part, that's not it. And you have, minutes worth of rest in between sets. So that was a little bit difficult for me to adjust to at first. But what was more difficult for me to adjust to was the diet part of things, like realizing that I needed to properly eat and give my body the nutrients. that it needed. Not that you don't have to with bodybuilding, because I mean, that's 90% of bodybuilding. But, you know, just with having to eat like the extra carbs and, you know, things that I wasn't used to, that took me the longest, I think, to get used to, more so than the training.
I guess because you used to how you look on stage, and now suddenly it's just about performance. It is a little bit different. Were you concerned about your physique changing too much, or was that not kind of something you worried about? You just found it harder to maybe eat more than you were before?
Yeah, I think I was maybe a little concerned of my physique changing, because like in my past, like with bodybuilding, like I always attributed like carbs to like getting like watery and just, you know, gross looking and feeling. And so that, you know, that was the biggest part for me. So I'm like, okay, we need carbs. We need to eat them before workouts. Like, otherwise we can't perform, you know? So just that whole like mental switch in the way that you train and do things, you know, like I said, was a little difficult. I bet you it took me about a year or so before I really like it clicked for me. And I was like, oh yeah, well, if I eat properly, I'm not going to pass out under the log and, you know, things like that. So
had you seen much strongman and strongwomen comps beforehand? Because you really did just burst onto the scene and just start winning everything. And, you know, a lot of people look on and say, oh, it's not fair. You know, you came in and dominated the sport. But had you been a fan of the sport before that, or was it always bodybuilding and then you just sort of, you know, stumbled upon us?
Yeah, it was always bodybuilding. Like I used to watch Mr. Olympia on TV when I was little, when it used to be televised. And I was so like mesmerized with that. So prior to doing my first contest, I don't recall that I had ever been to a strongman contest or even seen it done. So it was like really this whole new world that I didn't really know much about, other than, you know, what my friend would tell me about it. And I've so to answer your question, like had never been a fan of the sport.
Okay.
You know, like Dennis, those of you who know Dennis, a lot of people know Dennis. He's very much a fan of the sport, and he loves the sport. He loves it for the history, for the camaraderie, you know, so he's really dedicated to that and the history of it. And I'm kind of like the opposite of that, or at least I was, you know, when I got into it. So
just for people that don't know, Dennis is your partner. He
yes.
He does strongman as well, competes in the Masters, and yeah, he's a bit more like me. He likes the history of the sport. Probably watches a lot more than maybe you did or have yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting when we get athletes like yourself. We've seen it a couple of times on the men's side, and you're very there's women as well that I think sometimes not understanding that history helps you, because you don't suddenly put anyone on a pedestal. You can sometimes be too much of a fan, and you'll see these athletes and you kind of think, oh, they're incredible. Whereas you've come in and just think, look at these fat guys. You know, I'm going to beat these. Was it like that? Was it very much, you know, you didn't really care who you were competing against because you didn't know who they were? Or was there anyone that you'd heard of that, you know, you were told, oh, this person's really, really good? Or had any of that kind of gone down?
Yeah, no, it was just that. Like I had no idea who any of like the top women were in the sport. Like in 2019, when I competed against both Andrea and Donna, like I had no idea who Andrea Thompson and Donna Moore were. I had no clue. So like when I was there, you know, I was just competing. Like there wasn't any like pressure. There wasn't any like, you know, like, oh crap, like is Andrea and Donna like, because I had no idea who they were. Like now looking back on it, like I really appreciate that opportunity. And like, now I understand like the significance of that. Like when I was in that moment, how cool that was, you know, to be with both of them. But yeah, I had no clue who anybody was. So it's just like, okay.
It's so interesting to see that, because you know we can our minds can play against us sometimes, you know, and you can put people who you can just think, oh, they're unbeatable before you even step on stage, which, you know, everyone's human, everyone has bad days, everyone makes mistakes, etc., etc. It is important to focus on yourself, but it's quite nice to have that mentality of I'm just going to go and do my thing, and suddenly you realize you're one of the best on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little unique. It's kind of a shock, and I don't know that at any point during this, like I really, truly have believed that I'm one of the best. I know, kind of sounds weird, like, well, you're going to these contests and you're winning these contests, and you know, and yeah, like I am, but I think it's because the reason why I've never really thought of myself as like being up here is because like that's not where I started. You know, like I'm just very much just that, you know, woman that competed at that local contest at heart, you know? So
you're a very humble person, to be fair, though. And, you know, I think that's very endearing. And I think it's why a lot of people like you. But also, you're not that well known for someone that is as good as you are. You know, it's only the last few years that I've heard about you and kind of looked into your history. And just to make people aware, you competed in your first World's Strongest Woman 2019, and you were second in that contest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think from that contest through to this Arnold, you've won every single pro show that you've done.
I have. Yep.
Every single show that this woman's been in, she has won, and for the most part dominated. And that is against the absolute best in the world. You know, talking about, you know, beating Inez and Olga at American Strongest a number of times. You've beaten Andrea, Donna, you know, Rebecca, all these kind of incredible women that we look up to. You've come out on top every single time, different events, doesn't matter. And I mean, you know, when I was working for Rogue at the Arnolds, they were doing these kind of vignettes on different athletes, and they didn't even know who you were. And I was like, guys, you have to do one on Victoria. You have to be talking about Victoria because she's going to come in and dominate this. And actually, that first day last year, you didn't do too well. And I was thinking, oh, crap, I'm going to look like a right idiot here. Luckily, you kind of pulled it through and made me look like I knew what I was talking about. But yeah, for the most part, you're not that well known on the, you know, in terms of the social media side of things. You don't push things. You're just one of those athletes that goes about her business, but does it extremely well. Is it always been that you just wanted to focus on the competition and you don't want to get involved with the social media, or are there other aspects that keep you away from that? Because, you know, we'll talk about it. Being a strong woman is hard in a lot of ways. You know, the sport has grown massively, but there is a lot of insecure people out there that seem to like to make comments about you guys. And is that something that's affected you pushing the social media side of things more?
Yeah. So I've always just been more of a person to like focus on training, focus on me, because really at the end of the day, it's me that I can control, right? I can't control what anybody else is doing. So for me to, you know, get on social media and like look at, you know, what everybody else is doing, it doesn't serve me any purpose. If anything, it's going to mentally mess with me. So that's why I've chosen to kind of stay more silent and more distant from it all. And, you know, there's a lot of like back and forth, even between like athletes, you know, just petty stuff sometimes. So I knew that I didn't want to be a part of that. And then you're right. I mean, there's people who say really nasty things, and I don't think that there's a single one of us at the top level who haven't been subject to that at one point or another. And does it bother me? I mean, somewhat, maybe sort of a little, but again, like I know that, you know, those comments come from insecurities. They come from, you know, people who really, they don't know anything about the sport. They don't know anything about the dedication, about the sacrifice that we all make. And so I always say like the loudest people, you know the least. And I mean, I think it's true. So, yeah, I mean, it served me well to go about it that way. And because of that, I'm not well known. You know, I always say, you know, thank goodness for Ken that he's kept me on, you know, Cerberus's team for as long as he has, because like, you know, I struggle to make posts sometimes, and, you know, but yeah,
I can relate to that. I'd love to be one of these people that could just naturally do these posts so easily, but my mind goes blank. I'm like, well, what do people want to hear from? So it's why I'd rather talk to you guys than post stuff myself sometimes. But so I do get it, you know, I really do. But I think it's, you know, it is hard on the women, but it's the men as well. You know, I think the more well-known you get, the more negative comments you get. You get lots of nice ones, but the negative ones tend to stick in there. And I've seen a few things with a number of the women recently, and it is a shame. But the fact is, I'm seeing so many positive comments as well. You know, the comments that we see from the Arnolds last weekend, you know, the things that you ladies are doing is inspiring a new generation to come in and compete. So, you know, I'm not really saying this to you, but just to any of the up and coming athletes, whether you're male, female, you're inspiring many, many people, even if there are these few negative people. Unfortunately, the negative people seem to be the loudest.
That is so true. That is so true.
Voice. They like, yeah. I don't know if you've seen what Pyro Dwyer is doing right now.
Oh God, I love it.
You know,
I love it.
It's great. and you actually see, you go and look into the the people that make these comments, and they've got a lot of their own insecurities going on anyway. So
oh yeah, for sure.
Sometimes we've got to laugh about it, but it is very difficult. We're all, we're big, strong men and women, but we're human as well, and we've all got those insecurities that go on inside of us. So I get it. I'm very disappointed that this is going to be your last competition. What was the decision behind that?
So I mean, I guess it's a decision that was made over the course of probably several months. And it's a lot with like life change and like where I'm headed, like career wise, or opportunities that I have career wise. And I mean, after 2 hamstring, I mean, I know top athletes, they get injuries and they come back and they, you know what I mean? They continue to show up and like more power to them. God bless them for it. But I'm not one of those people who wants to keep doing it, like getting 2 hamstring injuries and now this one requires surgery. It's just like, okay, well, I was thinking about exiting the sport and like, this is kind of like my like stamp on it. Like, okay, yep, it's a good time. But like I said, people who, or those of us who compete at the top level, I mean, it's not, rainbows and unicorns all the time. Like it's a lot. It's, even though this may not be your quote unquote job, like let's say you have another, Monday to Friday job, full-time job, all of your other, or most of your other time that you have is dedicated to the sport, whether it be training, rehab, whatever it is. A lot of that extra time goes to the sport. And so things like family suffer, friends, right? Maybe even career. So I felt that it was my time. Originally we had a 5-year plan. Me and my coach had a 5-year plan. And I think he put that in place originally because he's like, okay, well, I think it's going to take her 5 years to like accomplish, start accomplishing things or get to where I think she'll be happy. And so he reminded me of that, like as I started talking about retiring, and he's like, we only had a 5-year plan. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So yeah, it's a combination of things. I don't want to be one of those competitors that's, in my 40s, well into my 40s, and is just trying to still be relevant, if that makes sense. Sure. Like I have the utmost respect for like Donna or Andrea, who are in their 40s and still doing this. And obviously like I support them like all the way until, they throw in the towel. But I knew from pretty early on that I didn't want to be that master's aged competitor. Like I wanted to finish my career off on a strong note, and I didn't technically do that, but I feel like I've accomplished what I need to accomplish, and that's kind of where it is.
Yeah, you accomplished it. Your career reminds me of Yuka Shahlaei. I presume you know who Yuka Shahlaei is after talking to Des. Maybe not. Yuka Shahlaei, one of the, probably one of the best strongmen, I guess you could say, of all time, but he had a very short career. He came in, he won World's Strongest Man. He was second at World's Strongest Man the year after. He won World's Strongest Man again. Won a number of other shows and buggered off. He was done. And your career is very similar to that. Came in, dominated, and now you're happy to move on with new things. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good choice, and as long as you are happy with it, I'm sure we'll still see you at some competitions. Because I know Dennis is he's surely still going to keep competing.
Oh, Dennis will do this until he's 80 if his body lets him. Like there's no quitting that guy. Hip replacement. He tore his hamstring off the bone a couple years back. Like, I mean, there's just no quit. So yeah, I definitely still want to.
Us men are stupid though. We tend to keep going longer than we should.
Glutton for punishment. But yeah, no, I definitely would love to stay involved in some form, whether that be like judging at contests or, maybe doing a little commentary. I haven't quite decided if I wanted to dip my toes in the coaching part of it. And that's because of, I don't know that I'd have patience for that. I feel like if you're not following a coach's or a trainer's advice and program, and then you don't see results, it's not the coach's fault, it's your fault. But, so I don't think that people necessarily want to take that responsibility. So yeah, I mean, I still would love to stay involved. The most disheartening thing about this decision is that like, I won't get to go to the contests and be with other women, if that makes sense. Like I I love competing against them all, but I think I even take more joy out of just being a support for them. Because, not everybody has that handler per se. And then I just like encouraging them. It's fun. These women literally have given so much to me over the last 5 years that, I love to be able to be there for them for whatever it is. So.
Has it been nice to sort of be involved in that growth of the sport? Because it really is growing rapidly right now. And you've heavily been involved with that. It's scary to think how good you ladies can be, because the numbers that are being lifted and the performances just seem to improve year on year. Every single show that we have, we start seeing new women that, Angelica last weekend was unbelievable. And she's completely new to it, and we're seeing more and more athletes come in, and the performances, records broken. How far can it go?
Yeah, I don't know that. I'm not even going to say that like there's a ceiling for these ladies, because there's not. Just when we thought that like a 250 log was like, oh my God, then you have, Inez with a 321 log, and it's like, oh shit. Or, when a 651 deadlift is amazing a year ago, and then you have Lucy less than a year after that pulling 7, and it's like, well, shoot, so I don't know that there is a ceiling. I just think, we will continue, but they will continue to, push the limits, and, it's, whatever happens. We're capable of some amazing things. So.
Absolutely you are. It's yourself and some of the other ladies that break the boundaries and make people realize more is possible. Talking of which, I want to take you back a little bit, because you spoke about coaching then, and you spoke about you don't have much patience for people. Now, I really, this is great, because obviously I coach, and you deal with lots of different types of people. So I want to get a champion's mindset from someone like yourself, so people watching understand, because there's many people that come into the sport and they're like, I want to be the best. But very quickly you realize you don't want it, and I'm okay with people that come into the sport and just say, okay, I've got a 9 to 5, I've got a family, I can't commit to this like full time. I just want to enjoy training and get a little bit better. I got no problem with that. Those type of clients are great. I have a problem with people that come to me and they say, I want to be the world's strongest man. And yet they really don't. They don't understand how hard it is to be an elite level athlete in this sport. So from someone who is elite level, what does it take really to be great at a sport like strongwoman?
So, it takes focus. And when I say focus, I don't just mean like focusing on your workouts. Your day-to-day is lived around the sport. And from what you're eating to when you're eating it to, different activities that you're doing during the day. If you have like a heavy lift coming up, like you can't be the night before running around with your friends or out at the bar or, things like that. Like you need to put you need to make rest a priority. You need to make eating a priority. You need to make training a priority. There is no, oh, well, I'm not going to train tonight because, my friend wants me to come hang out with it. Like, there is none of that. Like, you have to be 100% committed. And, I've missed like get-togethers with family because I had to train, or, it's you can't just like half-ass it, but so like every part of you is committed to the sport and to being successful. And, even with the programs, I know people, if a coach programs something in their program that is hard or uncomfortable, like they just don't do it. And I'm like, well, it's in the program for a reason. Like, it's going to suck, but that's another thing. Like, you have to embrace the suck, and you have to do the stuff that's uncomfortable and the things that are hard, because if you don't, you might as well not even bother considering being at a top level, because it's not how it works. Top level athletes don't, give 60-70% effort and end up at the top and successful. So
yeah, no, it's an extreme, not just, all these sports are hard. Being successful in anything is hard, and it takes commitment, dedication. You can't just fluke your way to the top.
No.
I mean, you know, someone like yourself, you have good genetics because you need good genetics to be good, firstly. But the work, everyone at the top level has good genetics. So you're suddenly on a level playing field then. It's that determination, the willingness to push yourself harder than the next person. And very much the difference where, just explaining to people watching now, the difference between strongman and powerlifting, if you like. Powerlifting, you're training to hit a specific number. Whereas in strongman, there's so many variables in what you're trying to do. And sometimes it is literally about wanting it more than the next person, being able to force yourself to carry an object one step further than the next guy, you know, and you've got to be able to just mentally switch that on. It's not something that you can sometimes think, oh yeah, a little bit of adjustment in technique is going to help me here. Sometimes you just got to think, this is going to suck, and I'm going to be willing to push myself harder than everyone else. And that is just mental strength. And there's a number of events in strongman where that is prevalent. And it's, you know, it's where the top athletes separate themselves. They are willing to suffer more than anyone else. And that's why you do get to this point where you're like, okay, I'm done with this shit.
Until you get invited to the next contest and you're like, okay, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Do you reckon we can convince you for one more then?
I don't think so. Maybe with $1 million and
yeah, that's the tough thing. We're seeing the you know, the money go up on the men's side of things, and it is slightly improving now for the women. But I think as it stands, there's no professional females in doing strongwoman. Am I right in that, or is there any that let's say just earn from their prize money? I think most of you have full-time jobs still.
Yeah, I mean, if not like a full-time job away from like training and like training clients and stuff like that. Yeah. I think most of us do. I don't think any of us do this full-time as a living.
Yeah, it's still not at that level, but it is growing rapidly, which is good to see. There is more opportunities. I've said before, you know, not long ago, well, say not long ago, it probably is now. I've been doing this a long time. But when I was, you know, competing, I remember seeing Britain's Strongest Woman, and it had 2 athletes in it. Whereas now we have contests every weekend where there's loads of women competing all over the country. And I know it's the same in America. So the numbers are getting better. The prize money is getting better in the bigger competitions. We're getting more opportunities, but it's still nowhere near the same size as the men's is. And we still want that to get bigger and better as well. But you've definitely helped grow it. But as I said, most of you do work full time. You said yourself you wanted to focus on your career. What is it you're doing and focusing on?
So I got a very unique opportunity to actually get into law enforcement.
Okay.
So it's more of an untraditional path of what people normally do. But it was an opportunity that was brought to me, and I took it. And you know, that's another reason, a big reason why I'm, you know, calling it quits, is because it's a very physically demanding job. Yeah. And it's not a job where you can be injured or continuously get injured. And so in order for me to have a like lengthy career, I need to make sure that I save my body and, you know, put that towards where it needs to go. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we wish you the absolute best of it. It's a pleasure talking to you. I could talk to you for hours, but you're a busy woman. I don't want to keep you too long. And, you know, I just want to wish you the absolute best. For people that are new to Victoria, go and check out some of the stuff she's done. You know, there's plenty of videos out there now that show the impressive performances, but I was blown away by how impressive you have been over the last year. It's been a pleasure to watch you compete and speak to you backstage. And, you know, hopefully I get to see you and Dennis again in the future pretty soon.
Oh, yeah. You can't get rid of us that easy. We'll be around.
Thank you very much for coming to talk to us, Vicky.
Thanks, Laz. Appreciate it.